I didn't actually have a title in time for the program, but it was going to come out something like this. So, on the general topic of Jens's legacy, we have heard from his many students who are doing things ranging from cybersecurity to type theory to destroying the universe. So I thought I'd talk a little about what I've been doing. So I was Jens's first PhD student, circa 1997 at Purdue University. I was not the first to finish, but I was the first to start with him. Tian Zhao got that. He beat me. I was bitter about that. But so when I first began with Jens, he had no established lab group. And the advice that you always give to PhD students looking for an advisor is talk to their existing students and make sure that they're not insane. And the word on the street was, this guy's insane. Do not go work for him. My first day of CS565, graduate level programming languages, 55 graduate students in the room. Jens walked in and he said, in the past, there have been several A's in this class. That will not happen this semester. Now, those of us who know Jens know that he often has a very dry sense of humor, and as I once heard him remark, I do not feel like I need to laugh or smirk to indicate to people that I'm telling a joke. And so he terrified an entire cohort of doctoral students at Purdue that very first class. Later that same semester, when he gave the midterm exam, he required us all to go in individually to pick up our exams. You had to have a one-on-one appointment with Jens in his office. And I went in, and I had earned a 17 out of 100 on the exam. And I sat down and Jens said, 17, that's very good. And so I figured, okay, I'm in, right? So I became Jens's first PhD student. This is the Memorial Gymnasium at Purdue University, which housed the computer science department for many years. And you could tell that Jens was moving up in the world in computer science because he had the corner, it's off the side. I couldn't find a picture that had his office here. But his office actually had a window about this big, which in Purdue computer science, that was a very high status symbol. What you wouldn't know from the outside is all those windows are fake. It was a gymnasium. They remodeled the inside, so literally most of the professors' offices had no windows. And so that's brought on my lifelong fear of windows, I think. But so Purdue was good, and I did my dissertation work in static analysis of interrupt-driven programs. And when I told Jens I wasn't taking the job at the R1 Research University to go to Marquette University, I know he was disappointed. But I had the opportunity to get on the ground floor to build a computer science department that I just could not pass up. At the time, Marquette was just starting to hire PhDs in computer science in their existing blended math, stats, and computer science department. So I was in the first wave coming in, and they were basically offering me the opportunity to build a program. And I could not turn that down. It is the largest private university in Wisconsin. Those of you who aren't familiar, it's in downtown Milwaukee. It has like 13,000 students. And yet I think it said a lot about my colleagues and friends at Purdue that they all said, oh, so you're going to a small teaching school. No, there is a gradation below R1, it turns out, but that's not important. So Marquette's gone very well for me. Just to brag about me, 20 years later, we're doing very well. I am now the department chair of a separate computer science department, about 16 faculty. Our growth has been phenomenal. For one brief shining moment last year, we were the largest doctoral program on campus, and we're still regularly in contention with the large programs. Things are going very, very well for us. And Jens has also given me a pathological love of rankings, even though they can be easily gamed. But I love the numbers. They come out, and it's like, ooh, where are we? It's just fantastic, right? With well-established strengths in a number of areas. And I have really focused on computer science education since earning tenure at Marquette, because it turns out that was a big problem we needed to solve. I've brought a lot of the best things that I've learned from the best professors that I had at Marquette in order to build a program that's very hands-on. And you saw some of my students' work earlier on. These problems are never done, right? There's always more hardware to build, more device drivers that need to be written, more multi-core additions we can make to our undergraduate courses. And what I really love about being at Marquette is the opportunity to take things that were reserved for only the PhD students at Purdue and to bring them down and run our undergraduates through that kind of challenging hands-on system building content. And so I've spent a lot of time doing that. But Jens, in a moment of rare philosophical musing, once said to me, you know, the thing about having a bunch of smart people around with really theoretical topics is that in the sudden emergence of a real crisis, you have them to do something really impactful and important. Now, at the time, I think he was trying to make the case for why I should go into type theory. But we were not building atomic bombs. Nevertheless, what I took it to mean was it was really important to use all the problem-solving skills that we had been given and to look for opportunities to apply them to really impactful problems in the world. So here I am at Marquette, circa 2010. And I had just earned tenure, and we were, like many computer science programs around the country, experiencing this sharp decline in the number of students coming into the program. At one point, we were canceling required courses because we had less than 10 students in them in the computer science major at Marquette. And I've already told you the end, right? It turns out all great 14 years later. But there was this really big problem, and no one seemed to really know what to do about it. And you know, we have astonishingly poor diversity in our computer science programs, you know, across the country. A decreasing number of schools in Wisconsin were even offering advanced placement computer science. So we look at all these students coming out of the high school system, they don't even know what our field is, much less pick it as a major in many cases, right? And so the majority of school districts in our state weren't even offering this pathway. And of course, this is exactly why students were not majoring in these kinds of fields, right? And so I put on my Manhattan Project hat and thought, well, I should start digging into this problem and trying to figure out what's really going on here and what can the computer science department at Marquette to try to do something about this. So there's all kinds of factoids in here about the way teacher licensing worked. I did this crash course in figuring out how we prepare teachers to actually go into high school and teach computer science. If you don't know much about this, stay away. It's a mess. It's really kind of terrifying, in fact. But there's this whole licensing issue, and individual teachers are rolling all their own curriculum and have very little support structures. Unlike almost everything that we teach at the high school level, the computer science teacher is almost always the only one teaching that topic in their high school, possibly the only one in their entire county. And so they can't even like go down the hall and share resources. There's no community, or was not any community built up at the time. Right? So at the time that I started digging into this, there was only 31 Wisconsin school districts offering advanced placement computer science A, and that's with more than 600 high schools in the state, right? And so the numbers were not looking good. Moreover, a huge number of the existing teachers had basically been grandfathered in during the 80s and 90s, and we weren't producing more of them at anything like the rate that we needed. And in fact, while we were doing this census, 2 more dropped off the map during retirement. And I was like, oh my goodness, at the rate this is going, there's going to be no computer science teachers left. So I decided to do something about that, and have spent the last 15 years basically working towards this project. And this is about the time that Jan Cooney at National Science Foundation was going around to anyone that would listen to her saying, we have a big existential problem here in computer science. We need to build 10,000 more teachers for 10,000 high schools by 2015, or this whole new advanced placement computer science principles exam is going to fall flat on its face, right? I was like, okay, well, how hard could it be to get one of those grants? Hard, it turned out. It took me 3 years, but once you get one, it's not so hard to build up a little bit of momentum. So my time at Marquette has been mostly marked by my research program bringing in these large dollar grants that, I mean, it sounds impressive, but all the dollars go to paying teachers to come to professional development workshops, right? You'd be surprised how fast you can spend $1 million on teacher workshops for teachers that have essentially no background in computer science and have just been told, you're going to teach a year-long advanced placement computer science course. Hop to it, right?
No travel funds.
Yes, and there's no travel funds, and there's no support from the state, right? And so these grants coming from the federal government are essentially the only lifeline for these hundreds of teachers all over the state, right? So, and then there's all kinds of other things that come out of that as a result. National Science Foundation has been very good to me. So, what's the result of all this? Well, we actually approved K-12 computer science academic standards in 2017, and I was the co-chair of the standards writing committee. if you don't know how that process works, it involves education policy and state government and testifying in front of the state legislature and listening sessions and, oh my goodness, all kinds of things that had nothing to do with programming languages. But Jens once told me, you know, I cannot be intimidated by a handful of Greek letters in a paper. And what I took from that is, there is no problem that you can face that you cannot dig into and analyze and model and be able to come up with some kind of better understanding of the system. And so I dived in. And it turns out academic standards are a key barrier to colleges having pre-teacher certification programs to produce more academic majors who will then become computer science teachers. And it has all kinds of things to do with the way allocation of funding happens in the state. We've trained over 2,400 elementary school teachers to teach computer science in Wisconsin, reaching more than 150,000 at this point elementary school students in the state. You can start planting high school computer science teachers all over the place, but if students have never had exposure to computer science in elementary or middle school, they will not sign up for those courses. So you have to scaffold it back through elementary school and middle school, and you have to prepare those teachers as well. And so we've built this large pipeline for running workshops at Marquette in Milwaukee and in locations all around the state to bring teachers in, almost all of them teachers with background in some other subject, often math or business or social studies or history, and teach them enough computer science, well, to be dangerous, frankly. But that's all we need to do to give students a taste of this and to get them thinking about future pathways yes, sir?
Do I understand correctly that it was 30 AP teachers and now there's like 110?
Oh, no, we doubled it in the first grant by 2016. Now there's hundreds of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So out of the 600 high schools you said, you are like way up in percentage.
Yes, we have more than 60% of the high schools in Wisconsin now offer a computer science course. So the impact, now I can't take credit for all of that, but I will. So, no, that's many other factors, but it is very gratifying to have people point to Marquette and say that we led the way in this effort in our state, and that's one of the things we are now renowned for. And when a student steps into one of those high school computer science teachers' AP classrooms and says, you know, I think I might like to study this, I know that Marquette University will be one of the first schools that is named by that teacher when they're having that conversation. And so that, you know, has created a very virtuous cycle for us. Milwaukee Public Schools is the largest school district in Wisconsin, 76,000 school children, 30+ high schools. It's right there in downtown Milwaukee. It's where Marquette's located. So a lot of our effort over the past several grants is focused in trying to build the pathways in Milwaukee Public Schools. Prior to our efforts, there had not been at any of those 30 high schools a single advanced placement computer science teacher in 10 years. Right, and this is a case that plays out in many urban areas, right? The computer science teachers are in the totally most obvious place, the white affluent suburbs ringed around the metropolitan areas. They're not in the rural areas, they're not in the small towns, they're not in the inner city schools, right? So we've been busy on that, and we build lots of partnerships and run workshops all over the state. And we're very agnostic about working with all different kinds of curriculum providers. And the biggest thing is that we've been able to build an actual professional organization, the Computer Science Teachers Association Wisconsin Dairyland chapter, which provides that kind of scaffolding that teachers were not getting. So when new teachers come into the pipeline, they have resources, they have people that they can ask for questions. Our mailing list is the envy of many of our neighboring states. There are people who lurk just to see how that community is working in Wisconsin as a result of some of this work. And there's a whole pathway of things that we teach and all these different workshops that we run. It turns out it's really a very complicated system with a lot of moving parts. And if you want to have lasting impact, well, allocate about 15 years and more or less $10 million. And that's the recipe for success. Teacher production is still really awful. You know, Wisconsin's still producing about, on average, 2 new licensed computer science teachers per year out of the university system. So the incentives just aren't there, right? If you have a student who's an undergraduate and they're double majoring in education and computer science, and they have enough computer science knowledge to become a computer science teacher and to get that license, they also have enough knowledge to get a job in computer science, which will pay 3 times as much. That's what they're going to pick unless they're the rare unicorn, right? So most of our programming has been focused on training up existing in-service teachers whose degree is not in computer science, it's in some other subject area. They've already discovered their passion is teaching, and they are the advocates for their schools. So we dream of a day where undergraduate programs are producing hordes of new computer science teachers flooding out into the community, but the cavalry's not coming right now. So we need to focus on more practical problems to get through this. It's still the case that all this training still has diminishing returns for actually reaching the students that we want to reach. The participation level in AP level computer science remains sharply tilted. I don't know if you've looked these figures up. We are the worst of all the advanced placement exams that are offered by the College Board. The gender balance in computer science is by far the worst. Worse than AP physics, electricity, and magnetism, my friends. So we have a lot of work to do. CS Principles has helped a lot, but there's still a lot to do. It's important. And still, after all of this and all that teacher professional development, less than 5% of Wisconsin high school students still actually take a computer science course. And these numbers are on par with most of the other states. There's only 2 states out of the 50 in the US that actually have a requirement for high school students to take some kind of computer science experience. Most of the rest leave it up to the students, and as a result, they choose other things.
You brought it up to 5%. It must have been terrible.
Yeah, it was really terrible before we started, right? I mean, this is the thing. I get to claim I more than doubled the number of computer science teachers in Wisconsin. And if you don't know that the starting number was 32, that sounds very impressive, right? But yes, it's when the numbers start so terrible. So now I lead the Pisces lab group. Ooh, promoting innovative systems for computing education in schools. Did I get that right, guys? Yeah, okay. Still working on the new acronym. But now I have my own doctoral students and master's students and undergraduate researchers that are working on designing new CS curriculum, software, and hardware that help enhance student learning in computer science, ranging from kindergarten all the way up through high school and on to undergraduate level stuff that we do. Training new teachers of computer science, working on that pipeline, all the big system challenges around policy and funding and licensing that need to be unraveled, and then actually measuring whether any of these implementations actually impact what students have learned, and measuring teachers' attitudes and beliefs about computer science, which turn out to be really important gateways to what they actually do in practice in the classroom. And this is not at all what Jens trained me for. And yet, I feel like one of those Manhattan Project scientists that was just in the wrong place at the wrong time for a really important crisis to come along, and to recognize, oh no, it's me. I've become the expert on this in Wisconsin. I'm the one who knows the most about this problem and who's actually doing something about that. And that is a story that I've heard repeated in different forms from many of Jens's other alumni. So well done, and thank you for putting me in the position to have that kind of legacy. I doubt you will have questions about anything that I have just said, but yes, sir.
Never would have majored in it in college if it weren't for that, so it's been a really life-changing thing. So I expect that that's also true of your work, and so this is sort of a good way to say thank you for your work.
Thank you. Yes, we should not underestimate the impact of those, right? Students who take a high school computer science course, much more likely to then go on to study it, right? So we got to build the pipeline. Yes, Julia.
So I didn't know high school computer science.
Do you want to get on the microphone?
So I had no high school in computer science. All my computer science was in middle school. So is there anything, are there any efforts?
Oh yes,
Earlier levels?
I breezed through several of those slides, but yes, we've trained hundreds of middle school teachers around computer science programs, both standalone computer science and integrating computer science into existing middle school topics. And actually, several of my students in back are funded off a grant working on elementary school computer science integration. Usually they don't do it standalone. We have to integrate the computing into some existing elementary school topic, which is more challenging, but also really rewarding and a lot of fun. Okay, I think we're probably,
Oh, Dennis, it's just wonderful. There's this thing about who's teaching the teachers, and I realized that this is not about producing new teachers, it's actually teaching the teachers.
Yeah.
And then teaching them to teach something new.
Yeah.
And from Denmark, in Denmark where I come from, all teachers are supposed to be able to teach 2 topics. And the ones you have, maybe they go through your program, maybe they're teaching 1 or 2, and you give them a second or a third.
Yes, this is usually a third topic for them in many cases.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I think this is very much about addressing the real problem instead of taking on the impossible problem, but making progress where progress can be made.
Yeah.
Well, for $10 million, but still.
Yes, exactly. All right, thank you all.